O ye of little faith. Welcome to my channel. This video will be about the phrase O ye of little faith. Jesus used this phrase to criticize his disciples for their lack of faith in God's power and ability to provide for them. He also used this phrase when they doubted what he taught them and when they failed to perform a miracle. When someone uses the phrase to describe us, it reminds us that we are doubting that God has our back and is working things for our good. Non-believers use it in a more general way. They use it to criticize someone for lacking confidence or faith in the outcome of a situation. Jesus used the phrase O ye of little faith in Matthew 14:31, to Peter when Peter walked on the water towards him but began to sink when he became afraid. People believe the lesson about Peter walking on water is that he took his eyes off Jesus. Jesus has never been that vain in believing that things are all about him. He didn't say, "Why did you take your eyes off of me?" He said, "O ye of little faith," because it was about Peter believing he could do it. In Matthew 8:25-26, Jesus also used the phrase when the disciples were afraid during a storm on the Sea of Galilee. Jesus and his disciples were on a boat when a huge storm came, and the disciples feared for their lives. Jesus was sleeping peacefully when the disciples woke him up asking him to save them because they believed they were going to die. Jesus rebuked the winds and the sea, and a sense of calm was restored. He then turned to his disciples and said, "Why are you afraid, O you of little faith?" Of all people, the disciples who were witnesses to the power of God through Jesus should have had faith even in the midst of a raging storm. Like the disciples, we allow fear and doubt to hinder our intimate relationship with God. Just as Jesus protected them from the storm, we can trust in God's power and presence during our insurmountable difficulties. Jesus used it again in Matthew 17:20 when the disciples were unable to cast out a demon from a boy. They asked Jesus why they were not able to drive out the demon, and Jesus told them that it was because of their lack of faith. Even a small amount of faith is incredibly powerful and makes anything possible. How about in Matthew 14:27, when Jesus was walking on the water towards the boat the disciples were on, and they were afraid, thinking they saw a ghost. But immediately Jesus spoke to them, saying, "Take heart, it is I. Do not be afraid." When we take heart and refuse to fear, we show God we trust and believe that even if we see a ghost, He sees it too, and He will either tell us how to handle it or handle it Himself. Then there's Matthew 16:8, where Jesus and the disciples were in a boat, and Jesus warned them to beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and Sadducees, but the disciples misunderstood Him. "You of little faith, why are you talking among yourselves about having no bread?" The disciples were concerned that they had forgotten to bring bread with them on their journey. Jesus had to remind them of the previous times He miraculously provided for their needs. We disappoint God when we demonstrate a lack of trust. Even in times of uncertainty or difficulties, we can show God we trust in His provision and knowledge. Lastly, in Matthew 28:17, when Jesus appeared to His disciples after His resurrection, some of them doubted that it was really Him. Some of the disciples knew it was Him and worshipped Him immediately. Some of the others doubted. This is a clear indication that we need to be aware of the tension between faith and doubt that exists within our belief system. I believe it's normal to have doubts, but we must be proactive in working through them to strengthen and demonstrate our faith to God and the world. I don't know about you, but I never want to hear anyone say to me, "O ye of little faith." Please like, share, and subscribe. God loves you and so do I.